Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, you're not going to miss our consumer literacy update. We're going to talk about credit scores and how important that is to you. But first, hey, we had a big primary election this past week in Pennsylvania. You want to get an update on, hey, what does it all mean? How about that? We'll do that and more in a moment.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, I think without doubt we had one of the more fascinating primary elections in recent years. It was up and down, and tremendous change took place in the congressional primaries. We may get into that, and how can we not talk about the Republican gubernatorial contest and the Democrat on the Democratic side, the lieutenant governor? He is one of the more fascinating personalities in Pennsylvania politics. Sitting across from me, as often is the case, is Katie Meyer. She's the Capitol Bureau Chief with and all WITF, and also PA Public Radio. I got that right?
Yeah.
She covers for those stations. And Steve Esack, he's a regular. He's with the Allentown Morning Call. All right, Steve, let's start with this. You've covered a lot of these. What, if you had to think of one big takeaway from this election, what would it be?
You can sum up the congressional race in four words.
What?
Girls rule, boys drool.
That wasn't that a T-shirt at one point?
That was a T-shirt in the as kids.
Yeah,
it's a T-shirt slogan.
You're
but
right.
Eight women, 7 Democrats, one Republican ended up winning their primaries.
Yeah.
That ensures that at least one woman, and probably more, will break the all-boys club as it relates to Pennsylvania's 18 congressional representatives. And I believe it's the fifth.
It's the fifth, that's right.
Yeah, in Chester County, you had a female Democrat win, and
Mary
a female,
Gay Scanlon, right?
And a female Republican win.
Pearl Kim.
Yeah, so that is one seat that is going to be a woman no matter what. In the 7th District, up in the Lehigh Valley, you had Democrat Susan Wild, really a nobody attorney, really unknown, do the unthinkable, in my opinion, and she beat John Morganelli, the longtime Northampton County district attorney, and that really was a race amongst all of Pennsylvania that was really about the progressive Democratic movement versus the
I've never
moderates.
heard the word progressive used as much in any campaign in Pennsylvania as we did this year, right?
Oh, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But John Morganelli.
Did you cover any of those congressional, or were you doing the governor's race and the lieutenant governor?
I was more on the governor and lieutenant governor. We did have a lot of people covering the others, but no, I guess my takeaways are just that we have to sort of gear up for a fight for governor between 2 millionaires from York.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is, I mean, just
you can't make that up, right?
No, it's crazy. And then also just as far as lieutenant governor goes, I mean, I do think you can't understate. I mean, Mike Stack is now the first lieutenant governor who's been primaried out. And
I love that word, primaried out.
Primaried out. I love using it
words.
as a verb. But so John Fetterman, who's going to be his replacement should Wolf win again, is just, I was there when they had their first meeting together like yesterday. And it really does, they're just like a striking pair. Fetterman towers over Wolf. Wolf kind of looks like professorial anyway, but next to him, it's just like a really stark contrast.
Yeah, just make sure. John Fetterman is the mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania. He ran for the Senate 2 years ago. He got about 20% of the vote in the Democratic primary. He lost, but he had a statewide presence. He was endorsed by Bernie Sanders, and he also is larger than life, 6'8". He has tattoos right on both of his forearms, and he complains. He says, I even own a suit or two. So,
so
if they win, and I'm using the subjunctive, he's going to have to wear a suit where?
Well, he's going to preside over the Senate, and which is something I really am kind of looking forward to should they win, because Mike Stack, had sort of like a lot of panache. He was like a very well-dressed guy. Fetterman usually wears like a black work shirt and cargo shorts, which is something I don't think is allowed on the Senate floor.
No, I don't expect that to happen. But you know, John Fetterman, for what he looks like and that kind of thing, when you speak to him, he sounds just like a professor,
totally.
like Tom Wolf.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
is Harvard educated, so
Yeah.
what you see is not really what you get with
Yeah.
that gentleman. And on the Republican side, you have Scott Wagner and Jeff Bartos versus
Yeah. Let's
Wolf
go
and
to a
Fetterman.
break, and we come back. Let's talk about, we've got to at least say a word or two about the Republican gubernatorial contest. It was closer than I thought, and boy, you want to talk about two different personalities. Governor Tom Wolf and his opponent, State Senator Scott Wagner. I mean, you can't find people, not just on the issues, but in the personalities. They are remarkably different. We'll get to that side of things in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back. Well, we're doing I can't say a preview, we're doing a postscript. Maybe that's a way to look at it, of the important aspects of the primary elections that took place. Steve Esack and Katie Meyer, both journalists who cover lots of things in state government and politics. Katie, State Senator Scott Wagner, he won his Senate post on a write-in vote against the party-endorsed candidate. First time in the history of the state Senate that took place. And to say that he and Governor Wolf have different personalities would be an understatement.
I would say so, yes. Wolf has a sort of reputation for being a very mild, soft-spoken guy. He, when reporters talk to him, he's always sort of like, he's very sort of mild. I don't see him getting worked up about much.
Mild's a good word.
Mild's a good word, yeah. And
precise in his words and cautious, and is that also part
I would
of
say
it?
he's cautious. Cautious to answer questions sometimes too.
Yeah.
Wagner, on the other hand, has a reputation for being somebody with a little bit of a temper. He has gotten into sort of altercations with a campaign tracker in the past.
Yeah.
He took this guy's camera. He is he is the party endorsed candidate. I think he's been trying to moderate himself, kind of be very like governor-ish in the last several months of his campaign.
He's very, now hold on. I describe him, he's a huge supporter of President Trump.
Yes.
Right.
Let's start with that.
Yeah.
On policies and issues.
Right.
But he's also Trump-like in his style and personality, or am I wrong about that?
No, you are right. Like Donald Trump, Scott Wagner will go completely off script. He will. I don't think it's fair to call what Scott Wagner says lies, exaggerations, misunderstandings of the way government works, that sort of thing. But like Donald Trump, he's gone after his own Republican colleagues, calling them frauds, liars, crooks in public meetings in the Senate chamber. So Scott Wagner has a narrative, a self-built narrative that turns him into. We saw it. Paul Mango tried to use that against him, bully and all. It did not work. We'll see how that goes in the general election, but. Scott Wagner's campaign, I have great respect for Jason Hye's campaign manager and his Scott Wagner's spokesman, Andrew Romeo, is very, very good.
Well,
however,
look,
they have their work cut out with that.
But the bottom line here, Katie, is that in a sense, and we're just being descriptive. I'm not being critical,
Right.
and I know we're just being descriptive here. The fact of the matter is that you're never sure what he's going to say.
No.
He, makes a set of arguments that sound an awful lot like President Trump, And he and Governor Wolf not just have different personalities, temperaments, and style, but could they be further apart on the issues that we're going to be that you two are going to be writing and talking about?
No, in some cases they couldn't be farther apart on facts. Wagner once told me that body heat's causing climate change. So I mean, which is something Wolf does not believe. Yeah, I think they're very different. Wagner, obviously, small government guy,
right,
wants to put more choice in schools, wants to cut down, he wants work requirements for Medicaid, he wants all of these, a lot of the Republican platforms, and more in some cases. One of the things he brings up all the time is bringing back the death penalty. So,
and Wolf has issued a moratorium.
Yes, Wolf has issued a moratorium on the death
penalty.
penalty. So I just things that I think are designed to tap into that exact same base that Donald Trump did. He also, though, I will say, Scott Wagner supports an increase to the minimum wage, which is something that's kind of off kilter for a lot of Republicans.
Yep, and he supports a bill in the state legislature that would make it illegal to discriminate on basis of gender identity and sexual orientation, and employment and housing. And he was criticized during the campaign by, go ahead.
Right, and he was. Paul Mango criticized him. Paul Mango, I believe, took that bill and exaggerated what it would do. Scott Wagner is a fiscal conservative. He does believe all that stuff, and he doesn't shy away from that. However, he's not really been that much of a social conservative. Even surprisingly, during the primary campaign, he really did not go all that hardcore social GOP politics like Paul Mango did. I was surprised at that. Maybe that will help him in the general election, but like I said, he does have some issues to overcome.
All right, before we don't have time to, we'll have plenty of time to talk about Senator Casey's matchup against Representative Lou Barletta. That's going to be a nationally watched election. But by and large, the governor's race is going to be high profile. Without doubt, you're going to have enough quotes to report on for a lifetime, I think.
Lifetime, yeah, I would say so. And I think we're going to expect a lot of money being poured into this. I talked to Val DeGiorgio, who's the GOP chair. They're backing Wagner 100%, obviously. And he mentioned, he says this is a race that the president wants to see Republicans win. This is going to be something where I think we do see a lot of money from out of the state coming in.
That's right. And we'll also, go ahead.
I was just going to say that if, Scott Wagner's very Donald Trump-like, but he does not have Donald Trump's celebrity, so which really helped him. Donald Trump, that was key. So it should be interesting. I mean, they are going to hit Tom Wolf on that tax increase proposals from his budget without a doubt. And that's going to be their driving message.
All right, thanks for coming in. I'm sure we'll get a chance to chat throughout what's going to be. Hey, I think there won't be any summer hiatus in the campaign, right? I think just starting next week, you all will be writing about. And we didn't even get to the state budget. We didn't even get to the state budget, which we think the legislature will try to get done by June 30. At any rate, great having you. All right, our popular financial literacy update. Credit scores. I mean, this is truly important. I only half understand it. We're going to get some experts in that are going to help all of us understand it.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Well, here we go. Now, we're going to talk about credit reports and credit scoring. Now, let's not do this and your eyes wander. And this is truly important. You want to get credit, you want to buy a home, you want to purchase a car, whatever. These guys are sitting across from me are smiling, knowing how important it is. This is an important subject. And joining me to talk about this is Dan Wolford. He's the Executive VP at the Lebanon Federal Credit Union. And the Chief Fiscal Officer.
Chief
you like
Revenue
that?
Officer,
Oh,
Chief Fiscal Officer.
Fiscal Officer. I'm giving him a new
like.
title at the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association, Ken Dyer. Regardless of what your titles are, you're experts on this. So let's talk about, first of all, what's a credit report?
Well, I think it's so important for people to understand kind of where that credit report comes from, as well as what it is. And what it is a compilation of all your credit relationships. And it's those relationships that you have with landlords, with mobile phone companies, with banks, credit unions, and credit card companies. So it's so important to, one, understand how that gets looked at. And you know exactly what they use it for. So it comes from basically 3 different companies, and help me with this one, Daniel. So Experian, Equifax, and
You're now
TransUnion.
over my head.
These are the people that put all of the data together.
I understand, yeah.
And then you get a report from one of those 3 or all of those 3 agencies, and that's what people like Daniel use to make credit decisions.
And that's a score. That they call it, you get a score.
Sure. Yeah. So Terry, part of that credit report is the actual credit score, and that's kind of the hot topic button that everyone kind of has interest in is what is my credit score, right? And that credit score is a 3-digit number, to put it simply, and it's giving you an idea as far as the credit worthiness of that borrower. Now, there's a lot behind that credit score. It's looking at the information that's on that credit report, like Ken mentioned. It's looking at things such as your payment history. Do you make your payments on time? Are you occasionally late? Looks at your utilization of revolving debt, such as credit cards, lines of credit. You know, it's looking to see, do you max out your credit cards? Do you frequently carry a balance? Or do you pay those items off in full each month?
Well, why do we care about it?
Well, you care about it because your credit score really will indicate the level of risk that you present as a borrower. And it's a quick way for credit unions to take a look and get to know you very well and to understand, okay, how likely is this person to repay the debt that we're offering?
Okay, well, let's get to the heart of it. Let's get to the heart of it. So we have this thing that you've been describing called a credit score. And so go through, here we are. We have our viewers out there. We're all consumers. They want to buy something. Describe what goes on. You want to buy a car. You want to get a mortgage. You want to, I don't know, even to get another credit card?
Yeah, absolutely. The credit score is useful for all of that. And even beyond the lending scene, you know, which is where, you know, Ken and I have involvement, even in things such as getting an apartment. You know, many landlords will screen tenants looking at credit score. Getting things such as auto insurance. You know, many auto insurers, they're looking at the credit score to determine if they're going to give you a policy, what rate you're going to pay for that policy. Even many employers look at credit reports. So it's beyond just, you know, getting financing. But yeah, the general use there is going to be you come into a credit union, you come in for a credit card, a car loan, maybe you want a mortgage loan. That credit score is key, number one, in determining are you going to get an approval, and if you get an approval, what kind of a rate, what's the cost for that credit you're going to qualify for.
Right. All right, there's another critical question, and that is, I have a credit score. I now know what goes into it. Well, how can I find out what the heck is in it?
Well, I think, Terry, the important thing is to understand that is your credit report accurate? Because that's how the credit score is calculated. So I think what you'd want to do is to go to annualcreditreport.com.
Say that again slowly.
Annualcreditreport.com.
Okay.
And you'd want to be able to go there and say, these are all things that I know about. These are credit that I have, these are balances that I think are accurate, and these are the credit limits. And to make sure that that's accurate and dispute any of those that aren't accurate.
We're going to run to a break. I want to get into that about if there's an error on the report and how this all can get fixed by people. This is important, and we want to make sure we cover the details on it. And talking about details, how about these coming up?
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Well, we're talking about the credit report, what's in it, how important is it? And before I go back to Ken, tell me, do you have to pay for this report? You get online. Go ahead.
Sure. As Ken mentioned, Terry, annualcreditreport.com is the official place for you as consumers to get a copy of their credit reports through the 3 credit bureaus, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. And getting a copy of that credit report is a right to consumers. There's no cost if you go through annualcreditreport.com.
Annualcreditreport.com, it's free.
It's free. You can do it once a year, every year, pull all 3 of the credit bureaus, which is an excellent way to make sure that information on the report is accurate, and is also a great way to help detect and deter identity theft.
All right, so we're back to this. You get a report, and it's messed up. There's an error in some way.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, first of all, you want to be able to write back to the credit reporting bureau that gave you the incorrect information. Again, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. So you want to be able to say, this is wrong, I want you to correct it. They'll go back to the person who reported it, the credit union, bank, or creditor, and say, this is inaccurate, show me where you believe this is correct. If it is incorrect, they'll remove it. If they believe that, or if they have shown that it is correct, then it will stay in that credit report. But you can put a notation that says, this is why this happened.
Oh, I got it.
So it allows the creditor or the credit union to say, okay, now I understand a little bit more about the circumstances.
So if you're trying to get credit from somebody, if there's an explanation in that might mitigate the downside to it for you as a borrower, right?
Yeah, Daniel, you look at those and kind of see where they might be able to help the borrower.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think one of the great things as credit unions in particular, Terry, we don't just look at a credit score when deciding to give someone a loan. We look at people as just that. People as consumers, and we look at the whole picture when deciding to extend credit to a borrower.
Are there private companies that actually assist you in this? Are you on your own? Do you just write to the Consumer Report or go to those 3? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think to pay somebody to help you fix your credit is a dangerous thing. First of all, you want any extra money you have to go towards paying that debt to reduce the level of debt and to make sure that your payments are up to date. It's really concerning when there are players in the marketplace that will collect all the money and disperse it to your creditors. You don't know when it's getting there, how it's getting there, and whether or not that's the best use of your available
So there are
money.
numbers that you get, and I understand that 700's a pretty important. Explain these numbers. So when people get them, they have 500, 700, 8. Go ahead.
Absolutely, great question. So typically credit scores, it depends on the bureau and the model that's being used, but they'll range from a low of around 300 to a high of about 850. And typically anything that's 700, 740 plus is considered to be prime. So you get the best rates, a lot easier to get a loan. If your credit score is underneath the 600 mark, that's typically what's referred to in the market as subprime credit.
I think Meryl Streep once said in a movie, "It's complicated."
It is.
Or Mike, go ahead. You want to jump in here?
It's complicated, but it's simplified in the fact that you've got these 3 credit reporting agencies. They're giving you a relative how do you do, and that's something your creditors can use to make quick decisions and get to know you quickly.
All right. Well, we're out of time, but I want to tell you, I think this is a very important subject. We were initially going to talk about identity theft. We'll have to have you all back and do that at another time. But this credit score business is very important, and hopefully we've helped people understand it. All right. We'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And as always, stay well.